Welcome to How to Make Your Resume Stand Out. My name is Liz Herrera and I'm the Associate Director of SPH Career Services, and I'll be your facilitator today. Let's get started. What is the goal of your resume? That is something that I always ask when people come to me with questions regarding their resume. And I like to ask, what brand are you marketing to your targeted audience? What is your professional story? So your resume will be tailored specifically to an intended audience. You are not going to have a general resume. However, I do recommend that you have a master resume where you include all of your experience, courses, projects, committees, involvement, community service. So you can have a resume multiple pages in length, and this is for you to archive your experiences. Because many times we tend to forget all the things that we're involved in. So it's a good idea to have a master resume saved with all information that you can add and later on omit or alter. But today we're going to be talking about a targeted resume. So having said that, we will talk about what is the goal of your resume and what kinds of themes you could include based on your professional story. So before getting started, what you want to do is research keywords and terminology for your profession. For instance, you may be applying to a fellowship that is focused on healthcare administration or working with underprivileged communities, or you may be applying for a research assistantship or an internship focusing on food access. So based on your targeted audience, you will tailor your resume and integrate terminology and keywords that align to that position or targeted audience. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to take inventory of your experience. You can pause the webinar and brainstorm. You may have your resume in front of you, and if you do, take some notes. You can include work experience that is paid or non-paid. Many times people undervalue their unpaid experience, but keep in mind that employers value any type of experience, whether paid or non-paid. Your field experience. Perhaps you recently completed this over the summer. Have you updated that on your resume? Or you may have completed this a while back and maybe only have a very small section on your field experience. This is something that you definitely want to highlight. That can potentially be 3 months worth of experience that can be relevant to your intended audience. Make sure you include all of your contributions and the projects you were involved. Many times, job seekers may have special course projects where they were able to gain hands-on experience on certain things that maybe they don't have direct work experience with. For instance, you may have taken a class where you needed to use GIS or SPSS or SAS, or maybe developing a website. You may not necessarily have done these things through an actual job, but you have acquired the skills. If that is the case, you can include a special course project on your resume. You can include other things like activities, committees. Many times there are job postings that require experience with budget management. Maybe you served as a treasurer or you managed the budget for a committee or a board that you were involved with. If you speak multiple languages, those are things that you can include. Even though the job may not require a specific language skill, it showcases a critical thinker, problem solver, and other skills. So I would definitely encourage to include languages. Technical skills. Do not undervalue your experience with technology. You want to include any type of software that you are familiar with, proficient, or working knowledge in. Those are important things to include as well. Any volunteer, community service, academics, publications, leadership, and conferences. Many of you will be attending APHA or other professional conferences. Many students have the opportunity to present or co-present on a topic. You can include this on your resume. Some sample headings on your resume can vary. Everyone should have a contact information section, of course. Now, make sure that you include your contact information on the document itself and not on a header. Many applicant tracking systems do not read the header of a resume, so you want to make sure that that does not get lost. So in your contact information, you would include your name, your email address. Now, you want to create an email address that is professional and that is specifically for your job search. If you're applying for full-time opportunities, you do not want to use your UIC email. However, if you are a current student and you're applying for internships, assistantships, in that case, your UIC email may be appropriate. If you have a LinkedIn profile and you are confident with the summary and all of the experience that is noted on your profile, then you want to go ahead and create a LinkedIn URL. If you have an account but you don't really use it and it doesn't convey the brand that you're trying to highlight, then I would not necessarily include the LinkedIn URL just yet. You can also include an introductory statement, which I highly recommend. Now, please note that this is not the same thing as an objective statement. So it should not read something along the lines of public health student seeking a part-time job. You are not letting the employer know what you are seeking because you are responding to a position. So you want to let them know what your credentials are and what you bring to the position. You can use this through a summary of qualifications, a career profile, or highlight section. And we're going to delve deeper into that later on in the webinar. You want to include your education. Always begin with your most recent first. So if you're currently a student, you will include whether it's if you are doing your undergrad or your master's degree or a doctoral degree. Lead with the most recent first. Then you can include work experience, or you can include related experience, or many times people will have a variety of experience, but they want to highlight their public health experience or global health experience. So again, depending on your audience, you will craft different headers. If you want to include any professional development, maybe some trainings, that is something you can include. Any awards, recognition, achievements, trainings and certifications, computer, language skills, leadership experience, presentations, or publications. Keep in mind that every resume is different, and you may have a resume that has different headers or headings than your peers. So what I want you to do again is reflect on your experience. What are your credentials? You may have experience that maybe is not completely related, but there are some transferable skills. What are some of your major achievements? Think back on some of your previous roles or a current role. How did you stand out? What value do you bring? Are you the go-to person for something? Maybe you are someone that is a problem solver. Maybe you are someone that brings in innovative ideas. If so, how? How has an idea come into fruition? How did you streamline a process? How did you make things better? How did you increase participation? What positive outcomes can you share because of your role or your impact? Were you involved in any special projects? I work with many students and job seekers that are solicited by their employer or professor to take part in a task force because of the level of expertise that they may have. So again, I want you to think about how you've gone above and beyond your expectations or any unique skill set that you may have. This is going to be important as you continue to flesh out your resume. So if you have your resume in front of you, or if not, you can pause the webinar. I want you to take a look at what you currently have. Highlight or underline any statements that show your reader your accomplishments and how you've added value. So only focus on those bullets that showcase an impact, that showcase an achievement. Okay, now that you have done that, assess the resume. Do you have a lot of underlining? If not, that means that you have to work on your bullet points. How can you enhance some of the bullet points? How can you transform what you currently have into impact-based, outcome-based, accomplishment-based statements? You want to move away from anything that is function-based and more into how you added value. And we'll talk more about that later on. So going back to your resume brand, once you have revisited your experience and have thought about some success stories, you want to think about, okay, I want this resume to really highlight on my project management skills, or I want this resume to highlight on my health promotion or my quantitative background. So there should be a theme, again, based on your intended audience. So that branding statement at the beginning of your resume should highlight that brand. There are various strategies and various ways to showcase that. You can have a career profile or a summary of qualifications. Now, when you think of a summary of qualifications, you can think about a job posting. Many times those job postings may have a section on qualifications, or they may say preferred or required qualifications. Use that on your resume. For instance, a job posting may ask for 3+ years of experience in project management, or experience working in a fast-paced environment within a hospital setting, or experience with medical terminology. You get the point. Now, if you find that you have the qualifications they are looking for, make it prominent using the summary of qualifications, but make it your own, of course. Or you can include a professional profile, where it's more of a narrative as opposed to bullet points, or career highlights. Maybe you have extensive experience working in healthcare administration, and you want to highlight some points of some achievements, some career achievements that you can include in some bullets. Or just have a career summary to capture or provide a snapshot of your background. Professional qualifications is the same thing as the summary of qualifications. And underneath some of these narratives, you can have in bullet points some core competencies or areas of expertise. These can complement or supplement your narrative. Things that you can include are maybe experience designing infographics for public health marketing, or website development, partnership building, CPR certified. So things that are relevant to that job. So here's an example. So let's say, for instance, you're a health educator and you're applying for a position that requires experience with program development and partnership development. You can have a tagline on your resume, so somewhat of a title. So in this case, this person is applying for, let's say, a health educator position. So again, let's imagine that they are catering these bullets to the specifications of the job posting. So I imagine that the job posting is asking for perhaps a certified health educator with 3+ years of experience. So here, this person says, certified health educator of 5 years, deliver culturally competent health education workshops at community-based organizations to help address health issues. Experience training diverse audiences on health topics in English and in Spanish. Perhaps for this position, it's an organization where they're working predominantly with Spanish-speaking audiences. So here this person is making it very prominent at the top that they have this kind of experience. We may also assume that the job posting is asking for experience presenting. So again, this person is making it very clear that they have presentation experience. Also, I imagine that the posting is looking for someone with experience building partnerships. That is definitely a skill set that I find that many public health professionals have, and they overlook it as a value. But many job postings require this or look for this. So if you have that experience, make sure you include it. Here's another example. Perhaps you don't want to include a list of bullets, but you want to have more of a snapshot. If you're a current student, maybe something that you can include would be Master of Public Health candidate in Community Health Sciences with a focus in nutrition. Strong background conducting focus groups and performing community outreach within underserved communities. Developed a 10-a-week fitness and nutrition program implemented at 3 community centers. Again, this is very targeted. Let's assume that for the position that this person is applying to, they're looking for someone with experience working in underserved communities with a specific focus on nutrition and wellness. And this person includes their experience developing programming around the focus area. So you want to keep it short and sweet and to the point. Okay, moving along. How do you enhance your bullet points? You want your bullet points to really highlight your contributions and your impact. You do not want your resume to sound like your job description. So it should not just be functions based, it should be impact based. Always tailor and customize your resume. Highlight strengths and relevant points. So another way to strengthen your resume is by quantifying. Use numbers, percentages, and accomplishments. If you, let's say for example, present it to 3 groups of 50 high school students on a daily basis, you want to include those numbers instead of saying presented health topics to high school students. Well, how many? Or perhaps you received an evaluation where you helped increase participation of volunteers by 50% through relationship building. So how did you get to that number? What was your method? If you're not comfortable using a number because you're not sure, then you can omit the number. But always show that you did have an impact. Begin your statements with powerful action verbs. You do not want to begin with anything passive. Duties included, responsible for. Take ownership. Do not use a template. It's very easy to find an online template and just fill in your experience. Keep in mind that employers are used to seeing the same template over and over again. A way to stand out is by creating your own Word document template. And you don't have to get fancy. Keep it simple. And as you're customizing your resume, because you will be tailoring your resume multiple times for a very long time, you want to ensure that you're using a clean document that you can update and not have any issues with tabbing and spacing or hidden columns. Again, show your contributions, and your resume should always be polished and visually appealing. So if you have your resume in front of you, I want you to see if you have any of these overused words and phrases. Demonstrated excellence, proven ability to, accomplished professional, able to exceed in fast-paced environments, works well independently or with a team, and so on. Employers are very used to seeing this type of language. So let's say, for instance, you want to show that you work well in a team. In your bullet points, you would emphasize collaborated with a team of 15 people on a project that XYZ. So instead of saying that you're a team player, you're showcasing it through words like collaborated or contributed to a project of a 5-member team, and so forth. If you are an excellent communicator, you can say effectively communicated with 15 departments on a new method for implementing grant protocols, something like that. Does this look familiar? Responsible for, duties included, helped, assists. I included this because many times I see that individuals will use the third person. Again, you don't want your resume to sound like a job description. Take ownership of those bullets. What did you do and how did you do it? HIPAA is another one. I see this all of the time where people will use HIPAA as opposed to HIPAA. Be mindful of that. and also hobbies. You don't need to include a hobby section. You can include some interest. Maybe you're a skydiver, or you are a trapeze artist that uses this artistry for public health messaging. Those are things that you can include, but if it's hobbies such as I enjoy reading or taking long walks in the park, maybe not so appropriate. Okay, so looking again at your resume, thinking about accomplishment statements. Written proof of what you have accomplished. Quantify whenever possible. I want you to think of success stories. If you wanted to take a pause and look at your resume, think of one success story for each of your roles. Where did you make a difference? If your boss can provide feedback on how you contributed or how you added value to a position, what would they say? Is that on your resume? What is your unique value? So enhancing your bullet points. Let's take a look at a few before and after. So this is very common. Responsible for developing a report to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Now, it just says that they're responsible for it. It doesn't mean they actually did it. I can be responsible for doing something, but doesn't mean that I actually carry out the task. Maybe. But if I say something like, developed and published 300-page report to inform the Secretary of Health and Human Services on policies governing electronic exchange of protected health information. That's a little more in depth. Developed and published 300-page report. I work with many students that are involved in large-scale projects, but they minimize it by not including numbers, by not quantifying. Here's another example. Submitted monthly data on state and federal contracts. Saved 10K annually by streamlining processes for submitting monthly data on state and federal contracts. Let's assume you did not save 10K, but you did streamline the process. You can very well begin the statement with streamlined process for submitting monthly data on state and federal contracts by XYZ. So how did you do it? You get the point? Here are some other power statements. Selected a team to write and implement 50K grant proposal to develop programs addressing childhood obesity. I've worked with a lot of people that have mentioned that they are recruited to take part in a task force or to be part of a larger scale project within their organization. And it may not be part of their job. So if you're doing things that are beyond your assigned tasks, but that you are doing something in addition because of your skill set, that should be specified on your resume. Or maybe you standardize the process for delivering training to 25 patients recovering from immune systems cancer and neurological disorders. Develop strategic relationships with key healthcare systems providers, including Medicaid HMO plans for commercial memberships. These are just some examples. Here we have passive versus stronger statements. So passive statements begin with things like gave training classes, worked on, worked with, answered patient questions, wrote curriculum. But now you'll notice on the stronger statements, the action verbs are more powerful and they include some quantifiers. Conducted 25 plus training classes on health topics including diabetes, obesity prevention, and substance abuse. Developed a first-time inventory system. Developed a strong partnership. Troubleshot issues and concerns. Designed and developed adolescent health curriculum. So you see the difference? Now, think about your experience. How can you transform your passive statements, if you have any, to stronger statements? Here are some additional tips. Do not clutter your resume. I understand that resume writing is very subjective and you will receive feedback from multiple people, and a lot of times it's different feedback, and students and job seekers get confused with inconsistent messaging. Keep in mind that many employers have expressed that a two-page resume is appropriate, and it can be appropriate. Now, if you do not have related experience and a lot of your experience is from high school and you have 2 pages worth of irrelevant information, then you want to keep it to a page. However, in my experience, I've worked with a lot of students that have internships, global experience, volunteering, leadership commitments that are very relevant to what they're trying to showcase or market. If you have relevant experience and it requires 2 pages, then I recommend doing so. You do not want to have a one-page cluttered resume. I find that many people will decrease the font size to a 9-point font or use very tiny margins and no spaces in between experience. That's not going to be helpful. I'd rather see a 2-page, nice and easy to read document than a cluttered page for the sake of keeping it to 1 page. I will say that you want to prioritize your bullet points and prioritize your experience, assuming that they will only read your first page. Keep that in mind. I recommend using 10 to 12 point font, and it depends on the font as well. I like to use Calibri or Cambria, and you can get away with a 10.5 or 11.5 font. And the margins can be a little less than an inch, but not too small. And make sure that you space out your experience. Keep your format organized and consistent. Visual aesthetics is extremely important. I get this feedback from employers all of the time. So again, do not use any distracting templates. I know right now many people are seeing these fancy infographic resumes with all these colors. I have not received feedback from employers saying that this is the trend to use. If you are in the arts, you are a graphic designer and marketing, then maybe that is the route to take. But in public health, I'm not seeing that very often. So keep it conservative. You can still play a little bit with color, maybe some dark conservative colors, but it's about the content. Keep your fonts consistent. Keep your sections consistent. So for instance, if you are bolding your title and italicizing organization name, do so consistently. If you want to include periods after your statements, again, do so consistently. If you're going to put your dates on the right, which I recommend, keep them all to the right. You want it to be consistent at all times. Avoid underlining whenever possible. It is known to be a little more difficult for the eye. Include enough white space and do not include a headshot. That is not appropriate for a resume. Proofing for errors. I know sometimes when you're working on a resume, it can be very easy to overlook the minor details. Have one or more persons take a look at your resume. I'm happy to take a look at your resume to make sure that it flows and that it is grammatically correct and error-free. Avoid the use of I or my on your resume. And when sending over to an employer, you want to send it in PDF format. It is cleaner to read. So these are some basics to get you started. If you need additional resume resources, visit the Resume Tools section on the UIC SPH Career Services website. You will find action verbs, sample cover letters, sample resumes, and other resume resources. You're also welcome to email me at eherre3@uic.edu to schedule an appointment to further discuss your resume needs.